In the world of video games, the line between success and failure is often drawn at critical moments during a release. Many promising games have seen their fate sealed by disastrous launches, marked by bugs, lack of content, and performance issues. These titles, initially met with harsh criticism and widespread disappointment, seemed destined to be forgotten. However, some of these games did not surrender to their initial fate. Taking into account some of the more inspiring stories of resilience and transformation in such situations, we'll revisit troubled releases that, against all odds, managed to turn things around. Not only did they establish themselves as robust and satisfying gaming experiences, but they also paved the way for future cases, showing that when mistakes are acknowledged and community cooperation exists, there's always a chance to bounce back from a downfall. Developed by Hello Games, this game arrived with high expectations, promising an infinite universe to explore. However, it launched with bugs, technical failures, and many of the promised features missing. The gap between what was promised and what was delivered led to severe criticism and massive refund requests. To make matters worse, the development team's initial lack of communication aggravated the situation even further. Despite the rocky start, the studio committed to improving its product, releasing regular and significant updates that substantially expanded and enhanced the game. Updates like Foundation, Atlas Rises, and Next fixed issues and added new features, enriching the gameplay experience. Open communication with the community, sharing future plans, and listening to player feedback helped rebuild trust. Today, No Man's Sky is a remarkable example of recovery in the gaming world. The title overcame a disastrous launch, evolving into a rich and engaging experience with a dedicated and active community. Released in 2019 by Ben Studio as a PlayStation 4 exclusive, Days Gone arrived with high expectations. However, it received mixed reviews, primarily due to technical issues such as bugs, graphical glitches, and inconsistent performance. The story and gameplay were also criticized, though prematurely, it must be said, for being repetitive and lacking innovation, which negatively impacted the game's initial reception. Despite the problematic launch, Ben Studio worked diligently to improve Days Gone. Through a series of updates, many bugs and technical issues were fixed, significantly enhancing the game's stability and performance. This dedication to continuous improvement and player satisfaction helped to rebuild the game's reputation, and today it's one of those titles that deserved a sequel. Over time, it became appreciated by many players, amassing a loyal and enthusiastic fan base. The game managed to overcome its difficult launch and is now recognized as an engaging and thrilling survival experience. The ambitious title developed by CD Projekt Red was one of the most anticipated releases of the decade, promising an immersive open-world experience set in a futuristic, dystopian reality. However, as is widely known, the launch was plagued with issues, especially on the previous generation consoles, PS4 and Xbox One. Players faced frequent bugs, severe performance problems, graphical glitches, and constant crashes. The gap between the marketing promises and the final product created a wave of frustration and anger, resulting in negative reviews, mass refunds, and even the game's temporary removal from the PlayStation Store. In response to the backlash, CD Projekt Red committed to fixing Cyberpunk 2077's issues. The company released a series of updates addressing bugs and improving performance. Patches and hotfixes throughout 2021 and 2022 resolved many of the launch issues, making the game more playable and stable, especially on console versions. Beyond technical fixes, CD Projekt Red also focused on adding new content and improving gameplay. The Patch 1.5 update, for example, introduced better NPC AI, combat system adjustments, and new customization options. However, it was the Phantom Liberty expansion and the Ultimate Edition that finally delivered Cyberpunk 2077 to the standard it should have had at launch. This additional content enriched the gameplay experience, reflecting the company's commitment to fulfilling promises made to players. Transparent communication with the community was crucial for the game's recovery, with CD Projekt Red keeping players updated on progress, thus gradually restoring trust in the product. Nearly 6 years after its release, Fallout 76 initially launched as an ambitious online multiplayer game. However, it faced extremely negative reception due to a series of questionable design choices. Bugs, graphical glitches, and most notably, the lack of content, were all controversial issues that impacted the game's immersion and narrative. The criticisms were severe, prompting Bethesda to issue multiple apologies and promise significant improvements for the game's future. Many players requested refunds, and Bethesda's reputation suffered considerably. Following the launch, Bethesda implemented a series of updates to fix bugs and improve game stability. Additions like new missions, seasonal events, and the 2020 Wastelanders expansion, which reintroduced human NPCs and a more robust narrative, were crucial in rebuilding player trust. Bethesda also provided ongoing support for the game, with regular updates and special events to keep the community engaged. Fallout 76 has managed to come out on top and continues to evolve, attracting new players with the promise of a vast, expansive world to explore, supported by continuous content updates that keep the experience fresh and engaging. The anticipation was immense, as it was one of the first games in the franchise created specifically for the new generation of consoles at the time. However, the release was marred by various technical issues, including graphical glitches, hard-to-ignore bugs, microtransactions, and issues related to an unprecedented co-op mode. The lack of polish and optimization problems led to an extremely negative reception, impacting the reputation of both the franchise and Ubisoft. Despite the problematic launch, Ubisoft committed to addressing Assassin's Creed Unity's issues. The company released several updates that fixed many bugs and improved the game's stability and performance. Ubisoft also offered the Dead Kings DLC for free as an apology to players affected by the initial problems. Beyond technical fixes, Ubisoft invested in gameplay improvements and graphical optimizations, highlighting the beauty of Paris and enhancing the parkour experience. The attention to historical detail and the faithful recreation of the French Revolution were widely praised after the fixes, helping to revive interest in the game. Released in 2021, Battlefield 2042 was once again developed by DICE and came with the high expectations of a Battlefield title, being the next major installment in this iconic series. However, the game was met with widespread disappointment among players and critics. The primary issues included an overwhelming number of bugs, inconsistent performance, and a progression system that failed to satisfy players. To make matters worse, the game suffered from unstable matchmaking, frequent server crashes, and unbalanced gameplay mechanics that detracted from the multiplayer experience. Furthermore, the lack of substantial content and the absence of a solo campaign mode were also points of criticism. DICE and Electronic Arts faced a difficult launch period, with general frustration from the community. In response, they committed to improving Battlefield 2042 through multiple updates and introduced new maps, game modes, and adjustments to combat mechanics. Few thought Battlefield 2042 could recover from such a major setback, but its player base has since grown to a respectable level, reigniting some of the enthusiasm that previous Battlefield titles enjoyed. All the trailers and gameplay demos left players eager with anticipation, but when the time came for release, reactions were extremely negative. Besides frequent bugs, the gameplay mechanics were unbalanced, and the narrative did not resonate with many fans of the series. Some unfortunate decisions regarding RPG elements, along with an excessive focus on microtransactions, only added to the overall dissatisfaction. The troubled launch of Ghost Recon Breakpoint led to harsh criticism from both the community and specialized media, with many negatively comparing it to its predecessor, Ghost Recon Wildlands. To address the situation, Ubisoft implemented a plan to improve Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The company released a series of significant updates to fix bugs and improve gameplay based on player feedback. In addition to technical fixes, Ubisoft reworked the progression system and the game balance, directly addressing criticisms regarding the RPG mechanics and game difficulty. The addition of new features, especially the return of AI-controlled squadmates, also helped enhance the overall gaming experience. Today, Ghost Recon Breakpoint is recognized as one of the best survival experiences in a war setting, now viewed as the excellent game it was meant to be at launch. It may be easy to forget, but Capcom's popular title initially faced significant criticism due to a rushed release and a lack of content. Many expected features were absent, including a full story mode, worthwhile offline modes, and a limited roster of playable characters. Additionally, issues with online connectivity and character balancing negatively impacted the experience for players in a competitive setting. After launch, Capcom had no choice but to improve Street Fighter V through updates and additional content. The company released a series of free updates that introduced new game modes, such as the Shadow Falls story mode and additional characters via DLCs. These updates not only expanded the initial character roster, but also improved gameplay and added community-requested features like online improvements and new customization options. Street Fighter V is now viewed more positively by the community, especially among competitive fighting game fans. What began as a troubled launch has transformed into a lasting success, maintaining its relevance in the esports scene through the right course corrections. In September 2010, Final Fantasy XIV, developed by Square Enix, was launched as a highly anticipated MMORPG. However, the game was met with severe criticism due to several issues, including a complicated user interface, lack of content, and a confusing gameplay structure. The overall experience was considered frustrating and disappointing, leading to a negative reaction from both critics and players. The situation became so severe that Square Enix publicly apologized and admitted that the game did not meet expected standards. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Square Enix took drastic measures to save Final Fantasy XIV. In 2011, the original game was shut down, and the company began working on a completely new version under the leadership of Naoki Yoshida. This reworked version, titled Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, was released in August 2013. A Realm Reborn presented a completely redesigned game world, with significant improvements in gameplay, a simplified user interface, graphical optimizations, and a vast amount of new content. Open and constant communication with the player community was crucial to developing the new version. Additionally, Square Enix implemented a robust plan for regular updates and expansions, such as Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker, each bringing new stories, areas, missions, and challenges. Today, Final Fantasy XIV is widely acclaimed as one of the best MMORPGs available, with a dedicated and growing player base. The game has received numerous awards and praise for its compelling narrative, immersive atmosphere, and refined gameplay. Developed by DICE and published by Electronic Arts, Star Wars Battlefront II was released as the highly anticipated sequel. However, it quickly became mired in controversy due to its aggressive microtransaction practices. The initial loot box system, along with a progression that partially depended on real money, was heavily criticized for being considered pay-to-win, allowing players who spent more money to have an advantage over those who didn't. This led to a negative reaction from both the player community and the media, resulting in a rapid drop in the player base and initial sales. The situation escalated when EA was forced to make quick adjustments to the progression and microtransaction systems, under pressure from both players and government regulators investigating predatory gaming practices. However, this was also the first step for DICE and Electronic Arts to re-evaluate their approach. Shortly after launch, the company removed loot boxes and implemented a reworked progression system that better balanced gameplay for all players, regardless of spending. Although it never reached the expected popularity levels, Star Wars Battlefront II is now viewed more positively by the community, especially after the changes made to improve gameplay. It sent a clear message that business models based on invasive microtransactions will not be well received by players. The recovery journey of these games highlights how resilience and commitment to the community can turn failures into lasting successes. Despite the initial challenges, each studio demonstrated that with continuous investment in improvements, transparent communication, and valuing player feedback, it is possible to revitalize a title and rekindle fan interest. These redemption stories not only showcase the impact of community support within the gaming industry, but also serve as a reminder that even in the most troubled launches, there is always an opportunity to turn things around and create something worthwhile.